right, welcome everybody. We'll just get started. So I'll just ask that all your phones are on silent and put away because we're recording at the back and I wouldn't want it to interrupt the recording. My name is Maria and I'll talk a little bit about myself in a minute. I just want to introduce you to what we're going to be talking about today and why DESC, Dubai English Speaking College, have decided to offer this service to our students. So just before we begin, I'd like to define what the careers service is at Dubai English Speaking College. We are the only college that really defines the differences between university guidance and preparing students for the world of work. And so my role is to prepare students for the world of work and get them ready for the skills that they require. My colleague, Rachel McCulley, is the university advisor, and she talks to them about university applications and anything university related. So the objectives of this guidance in schools is really about support. That's the underlying theme. It's about helping our students to discover the world of work, giving them experiences that are not just interesting, but they're relevant to the current and to the future trends of work. We want to be able to create the links between the academic studies that they're doing and the world of work. We want to be able to empower. I'm really a strong believer in that word empowerment. Empowerment is really about helping our students gain the knowledge and the practice in work, in that world of work. And finally, and this is where the thread of what we're going to be talking about today is, it's about identifying the gaps in the conversations that we have with our students, with young adults, about what they want to be doing and what their aspirations are. So those are the 4 aims of the guidance, the main 4 aims. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, just a minute, just take you through who I am and why I'm doing and how I got to this stage. My career started when I was a nursery teacher. I was teaching French children to speak English in a nursery environment in Quebec, Canada. I then transitioned into primary school. So I go all the way back to, I was working with 2 to 3-year-olds and then all the way up to college. I then did training in English as a second language because I was working at Rashid School for Boys. And of course, our students, their native language wasn't English, so I decided to do that training. And then I got to a crossroads where I wanted to continue my education, and it was either pursue a master's degree or try and do something that was more professional related to what I wanted to be doing. So I decided to become an executive coach and did some executive coaching and mentoring. And once I completed that, I went on and furthered my coaching and did systems organizational coaching, which is more about family system, teams, and partnerships. I then left teaching and started my own consultancy. I worked for myself for 7 years doing coaching and training in organizations and working with families as well. I then was given the opportunity to work at Dubai English Speaking College. It's my 4th year now, where they asked me to start this program and really help develop it. And just recently, I became a published author and an international speaker. So I now have started traveling. My first place of travel was Greece, where I spoke to 2 schools in Thessaloniki, talking to them about what we're going to be talking today. So I am not just here as the careers coach of Dubai English Speaking College. What I do is really not just my passion. I know a lot of people talk about passion, but it's what I really want to be doing. And I feel that the program comes together just because I have that enthusiasm, and that is portrayed in the work that I do with our students. So why do I do this? Why did I leave teaching, and why am I doing what I'm doing? It's about motivating and inspiring young people to achieve and to really think about their future aspirations. And it's not just about helping them dream, it's about helping them to realize that those aspirations can become a reality, and that's my role. And that's my intention for what I do and why I go to Dubai English Speaking College and create this role. So it's in beginning a conversation with students. It's that first conversation when they come to you, either as a classroom teacher or as a non-academic support member of staff, or even as a parent or as a visitor. It's that first conversation, talking to them about what are their aspirations. One day when they graduate, what do they want to be achieving in the world of work? Not where do they want to go to university. It's what do they want to be achieving. When they were really young in primary school, it was easy to ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? That conversation kind of diminishes as they start secondary schooling because the emphasis seems to be on the academic drive to get to university. So it's also having those honest conversations with students about what their career fears are. And most often, in those two questions, you'll begin to develop a relationship with students, and they'll be able to be really honest with you. And allowing them to talk about their fears means that they have someone that they can go to that isn't a teacher, isn't a parent, and they can be really, really honest. So how do we do this? How do we have these conversations? It's not just important to really have the intention for the best, but how are we actually going to be doing it? And it's those conversations going back to developing relationships with young people, developing that rapport, letting them understand that you're there to support them. But you're not only developing relationships with your students, as I am at desk, you're also developing relationships with your community, both here in the UAE, and of course you want to connect with global community as well. If we're going to prepare our students for the world of work in a time when we don't really understand what the world of work might look like by the time young people are going to graduate, we need to be connecting more on a global scale. So having those conversations, what are your aspirations? What are your fears? Allows you to then ask them a few more questions. Asking them, what are your intentions? Are you interested in going to university, but are you motivated academically? And why I ask this question is because a lot of them will tell you, I want to go to university. But when you ask them, well, what are your intentions behind that goal? They kind of go blank and they don't really know how to answer that question because it's not really a question anyone's ever really asked them. It's an assumption that students make today that obviously after I finish high school or sixth form, isn't that the obvious transition that I should go to university? Have they had that motivation academically? Have they ever really thought about not going to university and starting their career journey, starting that employability journey? Now, it's important to remember, as the careers coach, my role is to inform them about the options and the paths and the choices. My role is not to tell them that one path is better than another path. And it's definitely not there to make them feel guilty about the choices that they want to make. So asking them about, have they ever thought about not going to university? Have they thought about other forms of education that they could take rather than going and doing a university degree? Or have they really ever thought about employment journey? And it's also important to remember that financially, not every family can afford to send their children to university. So by not asking that question, by not bringing that kind of conversation to the table, we're kind of assuming that there is equal opportunity for tertiary education. And we have to be realistic and let them know that there are other options. And there's not just, I always talk about the one doorway into a house of opportunity. There are many entrances to the house of opportunity. You can either go through that front door, which would probably be their definition of the university path, or you could go through a side door, that might be the employment journey. You could go through a window, that might be the vocational training. But we want them to be able to understand those choices. And then it's starting to identify with some of the new things that are happening. In the UK, apprenticeship is a very popular path. An apprenticeship is the mix of academic university study and experience at work. And what happens is it's a longer journey of academic study, but at the end they walk away with not only a degree, they also walk away with work experience, relevant work experience, that most university graduates who have done the traditional university program probably will not walk away with the same kind of work experience. So we want to be able to offer them those opportunities. Now, what do we do? what we do is there's always going to be times of struggle and pain. On the one hand, the pain and struggle may come from the challenging road less traveled. Perhaps that's not going to university and immediately going down that employment path. Or maybe it's the struggle that comes from the pain of regret for not taking it. Perhaps they didn't go to university and they look back at their time and they feel that regret that they didn't take it. Either way, life was created for the brave and for the living. There's no escaping the struggles of life. The prerequisite for living is in handling the doubters and the critics. And that's so relevant to our young people today. No matter what path they want to take, they are their biggest doubter. And they will be their biggest critic. So we want them to understand that it's about overcoming challenge, surfing the waves, no matter how scary that it may seem. And this is an excerpt from the book that I've just had published called Empowerment for Teens. And the reason I put this in today is because it really defines what young people are feeling when they walk through the door. They're afraid of taking that path unknown, and they're afraid of regret. So they want to do what they think is the right thing to do. Now, we'll all be able to identify with either one of these two sides of employment, or we might be able to recognize people in our lives that we might have met or perhaps even work with. In speaking to professionals who are unfulfilled, who feel unhappy with the work that they're doing, they tend to talk about not wanting to go to work. They dread those long days. They particularly dread waking up on Sunday morning to make their way to work. Some of them might be earning a tremendous amount of income, and however, still the money isn't enough. It doesn't keep them excited. Most often, HR departments will claim that people who are unhappy at work tend to be those who take more sick leave. So they tend to feel sick a lot more, or they tend to just take more sick days. And they're the negative people. They're people that will tend to find the glass half empty in a workplace. And then they go to bed at the end of the night feeling really exhausted. And then we have the flip side. We have people who feel really driven. They have that direction. They have goals. They tend to self-influence themselves. So even though things might not be the best at work, they tend to influence themselves really easily to pursue their interests and influence the path they want to be taking in their career. They align with the organizational values and the vision of an organization. They're excited. They love the challenge. They love the growth. They really thrive in the challenge of it not being successful right at the start because they love being able to find solutions. And at the end of the day, rather than going to bed feeling really exhausted, they tend to have that personal gratification. That I really had a tough day, but at the end of it, I really enjoyed what I did today. When I have students coming through the office doors, of course, it's my ultimate goal. I want them to feel that direction. I want them to feel that goal. But life's not always like that. And we need to be able to tell them that it's going to be okay. There's going to be days or maybe experiences along their employment journey that they might not feel as excited. But what we want them to feel is that personal gratification. So what do we do? It's all about what you do. It's not enough to have the best intentions for your students to help them thrive and build the future career that they're looking for. It's not enough to just build those relationships and have the rapport. You actually have to put down the actions. So these are some of the things that we do to bring together this entire program. And it's not just one thing that makes it. Remember, it's not one conversation. It's not one interaction. It's a plethora of all the different experiences that you want to be putting your students through. Are there any questions before I keep going? Are we all okay? Great. So now I'm going to stop talking for a minute or two. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on the educational institution that you come from today. I've put Post-it notes on everybody's chair. And on those Post-its, I want you to make a note of how you bring the world of work to your school. Now, there's fine print to this. So we are going to keep this to ourselves, because I know that what we're doing today is not what we were doing 4 years ago. And what we were doing 4 years ago wasn't what we were doing 6 years before that. And me walking into this program, I had experience developing a program like this. In my own organization, I created a program very similar to this. So I kind of understood the challenges and the goals that I wanted to achieve. But when you come from an organization where this doesn't exist, you might find this question a little daunting. So I want you to be honest in answering and put down all the things that your school does to bring the world of work. So I'm going to stop now.
Sorry, I needed to be here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. So you only want to be writing on the Post-its, not on the sheet of paper. Great. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we bring the world of work? Does anyone want to share how they do it? Go for it.
Yes, in our school, United International Private School, we usually have an annual international career caravan. We collaborate with universities and colleges in Dubai, not only in Dubai, also in the whole Emirates itself. Plus also we are inviting our partners, such as, but not limited to, Skyline University, Emirates Aviation, Ajman, Buka. And we're inviting them to have a career counseling in our school. And then not only that, we only invite universities and colleges from the Philippines to give us their thoughts about motivation, career counseling, etc.
Excellent.
And also we network with different universities and colleges here by way of inviting them to give us enlightenment on what the latest trend in career
Excellent.
now. And also we are using data to present it to our students, and we also provide them research analysis about their career pathing.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Excellent. Would anyone else like to share? Yes.
So I don't actually work in a school, work for an education organisation, it's a
Okay.
charity. And what we look at doing is targeting non-formal education, so the activities that young people take part in about developing lots of skills. I can see some of them up there on your flip chart.
Yes.
The idea is it's not so much about identifying subjects with work or industry or whatever you want to call it. It's about identifying the skills that are required and using what they're already doing and bringing together, so what you had on the left column, to try and put it into that right column you were talking about.
Yes.
Giving young people a sense of worth. And so what we then do is then we look at the whole. It's not just what's happening in the class, it's then acknowledging and embracing what they're doing outside of class, because as you just identified, not everyone's their thing traditionally at university.
Yes.
But there are other things, even when you do get to university. I mean, I use my brother-in-law as a point in case. He's a surgeon. He's a fantastic surgeon on all accounts, but he's got poor people skills. He's not a good communicator, and there's other things that go with that. So there are a lot of people, unfortunately, because they're so focused on that university avenue, they think I need to be A grades or 7s if you're doing rugby or whatever. And what we're doing is honing in on what we call, we have 10 outcomes that we want young people to achieve.
Excellent.
Through doing what we call our award, and then they are able to bring those through. So even if they're maybe not the most academic, they're still aiming for something that's going to make them stand out.
Sounds fantastic.
University or jobs or whatever, apprenticeship.
Fantastic. I'll need to take your business card at the end. Anyone else like to share? Yes.
I just want to add to what they said, because then also we are networking with other schools. And as an IB, I'm from James World Academy, it's an IB school. And we have other gems around the world, like in Singapore. And we are exchanging professional development with the teachers, PDs. It's one of the school policy that all of us as a staff in school, we have to register in a PD and what of our skills and what are missing in our skills around the world, not just in Europe.
Of course. Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? How do you bring the world of work to school? Yes?
For us in our school, we try to establish some collaboration with private sector organizations to study the background of the students and their personalities. After that, we just go on for them and for the curriculum and stuff. So we can see the real world of the curriculum also benefit. And that's a kind of training for them.
Excellent. What school are you coming? Very nice. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share? Wow. More cameramen every angle. It's like the paparazzi. Anyone else like to share? So I want to introduce you to what we do and how we bring the world of work to school. Professional speakers. So remember, my role is to give them experience. My role is to support them and to offer them with opportunities. So we have professional speakers. In November alone, we have 20 professional speakers who would have visited our school. Since September, we would have 35. My target this year is 200. We had 150 last year, last academic year. So every week, almost every day, we have professionals coming in from all ranges of careers. It's A to Z. I don't just bring in the white-collar workers. I bring in everybody. I bring in vocational professionals, and I bring in highly academic professionals. The difference between the professionals that we bring in and what we see traditionally in schools is I don't just bring in a professional, I give them a guideline. They know exactly what I'm looking for. And I don't just approach universities. Actually, I barely approach universities. 90% of my speakers come from the world of work. They come from organizations. So I spend a lot of time networking. Probably 60% of my time is in networking with professionals. We offer world of work workshops. So this is talking about the skills that are required, emotional intelligence skills, certain transferable skills, technology skills, things that they wouldn't learn in a classroom, we offer as working world workshops. And these are offered to our older students, years 12 and 13. And then I write the content. I'm content writer and facilitator. I don't teach the curriculum for careers education, but I have created the content. And it changes every year. Why? Because things change in the world of work. We can't assume that the program in our career education 4 years ago is still going to be relevant today. And it starts with a conversation with our very young Year 7 students. What does work mean? You'd be surprised at how many students really can't give you that clarity of understanding of what work means. You'd be even more surprised that students as old as Year 10 and 11 don't know what their parents do at work. So in these career education lessons, we're allowed to talk about the realities of work, and we can make it relevant to their age group. And of course, it's based on the growth from year to year. So by the time they get to sixth form, they're now ready for those World of Work workshops, and they're developing the skills required from as young as Year 7. I spend a lot of time doing these career talks, both with our students, with organizations, and now I'm traveling around the world to do these talks as well. Remember, it's about connecting the global community with DESC. It's connecting the global community with our students. And it's offering career resources. I work very closely with our librarian to ensure that our library has the career resources we need. The Careers Hub is resourced with technology that is required, all the things that we can find useful. You'll find very little paperback books in the Careers Office because most of what we do is all researched online. And we want to really understand that that's where we're heading with our students, so we need to keep it relevant. Resources can also be something like LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn a lot. We use LinkedIn, we use career websites to help our students do the research, and we'll talk a little more about what that research looks like. And then there's, of course, one-on-one time with me. It's the career coaching sessions, where I'll sit down with the students and ask them those 2 questions right at the start. What are your aspirations? If anything were possible, what would you want to be when you start the first 3 years of your career? And then we'll talk about what their fears are. Most often, the response to that fear is letting my parents down. I don't want to fail. What if I disappoint my parents? That's a really big fear for our children. And then there's our wonderful career day, which this year we've decided to turn into a week. So to give you an example of what a typical career day is like at DESC, we turn classrooms into the world of work. We turned one of our buildings into a hotel. We turned another one into a veterinary clinic. We turned an upstairs into a medical clinic. So we don't just bring professionals. We do that regularly. Careers Day is about turning our school into what work would look like. And most often students are bringing their CVs. When they come to Spotlights, they bring a CV with them. They're looking for work experience, so they're being taught those skills on a regular basis. That's how we bring the world of work to our school. Yes?
We're from Dubai National School. Actually, we are doing something nice in how to bring the world of work to school. We are doing a day called the Shadowing Day, where some of our senior students, they shadow different professions in the school. Like, for example, some of them will shadow the head of academics, some of them will shadow the activity coordinators for the whole day.
Excellent.
So they know what the principal is doing, what is their schedules, their meetings, what actually they're in the whole day.
Yes.
They spend the whole day with that.
That's excellent.
So it's like giving them an idea
Exactly.
of like what that kind of profession would look like.
Exactly. And that's what we call work shadowing, and it's a type of work experience as well. So moving on, there's real steps to empower the awareness. Remember, yes.
Sorry, I'm disturbing you.
Shall we go back?
Go back
Yeah.
on the career day. You said you were organizing it rather for a week, right?
This year it's going to be a week.
If you could give some specific examples of how you are making, let's say, one particular corner as one.
I'm still in brainstorming phase, so it's going to happen in February, but I'm still in brainstorming phase. I'll share my email with you at the end, and I'm going to be organizing something, and I'll let you guys know right at the end.
And a little bit more on career education curriculum.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
It's lessons. It's in-class lessons that are based on what we need in the world of work today. So in Year 7, we talk about what is work. We look at our family career trees.
The structured lesson which you bring into the curriculum.
I've created the curriculum, and every lesson plan was created. All the teachers are offered these lesson plans. So I know that everyone is having access to the same kind of lessons. and then it's different from year group to year group. So it's all about awareness. Our role is to make our students aware of the changes, of the trends, but we're not there to create fear for them. We're there to really help them to create an awareness. So let me give an example of what happened yesterday. We had a tech speaker come to the school, and I had some time with the students before he arrived, and I was trying to get them to understand how technology is so relevant to the evolving careers. And they really couldn't understand. And then I decided, how many of them, I asked them, how many of you remember seeing a photograph of a typewriter? And they were like, yeah, typewriter, it's that thing where you'd put the paper in, and we were all having a giggle. And I said, 25 years ago, that's how we had our documents created. In 25 years, we now have the most advanced technology where I could be doing something on a tablet, and probably I could even be doing it on a phone. And I would send it off to something called a cloud, and then somebody could access it, and it's being shared on the internet. So that's the kind of evolvement that we've seen in 25 years, and that's one example. So it's in showing them, not just telling them, getting them to understand the awareness that by the time they hit their mid-40s, we don't even know how advanced technology is going to be. We don't want to be scaring them, but we want them to be evolving. So if 25 years ago somebody told us, you're not going to use a typewriter anymore, there's going to be something called a cloud, and you're going to share and save using that cloud rather than keeping these papers in a file, we'd all probably have gotten really scared of, oh my goodness, how are we going to get to that stage? But it's in helping them to understand that they want to be, we want them curious, we want them asking these questions. You definitely want them connecting with a network. And by network, I don't just mean their parents. I mean really connecting with a network is understanding who is around them. So in year 7, when we talk about career trees, we start with our parents, and then we go out to our friends, and so on and so forth. You want to get them to understand what kind of careers they're surrounded by, because how else are they going to learn about work if we don't really get them reaching out to their network? As they get older, you want them creating more networks, and this is where coming to Spotlight speakers or connecting on LinkedIn is understanding that the network can get even larger. Teaching them about networking skills. You want them to pursue their interests. So what are they interested in? Most students will be able to identify with a subject interest. They'll either say that they like art, or they'll say that they like science or maths. And you want to be able to help them understand, to create the awareness of what kind of work opportunities can come from an interest of numbers, or an interest of chemicals, or an interest of being creative. And then you want to let them stay open to their doubts. So again, another example from yesterday's talk, we were talking about technology because the speaker was in. And I asked them, how many of you believe that if you were really good at science, that you would be so successful at work, that you would probably be even more successful than someone who took IT? And almost 80% of the students in the audience, and there were about 90 in the audience, put their hand up. So we pulled up predictions from Australia. Why Australia? Because we had a few students inquiring about Australia. So I had my statistics for Australia up. And we looked at the next 5 years, jobs in IT, there's going to be a 40,000 requirement of jobs in the ICT sector, where there were only going to be 4,000 jobs in agricultural sciences. And that was a big, like, wow. We didn't realize that. So it's not just getting them to be curious and letting them to find their interests. You also want them to understand that there's more to this research of careers than they'll probably be able to understand unless they sit down and really go through that research. Let them stay open to their doubts. It's really scary for an art student or a music student to be honest and say, I want to be an actor or I want to be a musician, because there's doubts, there's fears that they might not be successful. So you don't want to feed the fear, but you want them to be able to understand the reality and let them understand that if this is a career they want to be doing, Get excited with them. Tell them there's potential, but you need to be aware of what you're going to have to do to have that career. So if you're thinking of being an actor or a musician, then the likelihood of you landing that great first big job is probably unlikely. So what other jobs can you do using those skills so that you can continue the passion of acting in music and also be financially independent and feel successful? And then you have to be aware of what their safe choices are. So that's going back to, if you ask a student, what do you think the safe choice is? They'll tend to tell you engineering, medicine, or law. And suddenly, architecture seems to be a trending safe career as well. You want them to be aware that these are safe choices, but can they see themselves using these skills and doing these jobs in the long term? And most importantly, you need to be doing this research with them. And that's what makes the careers program successful. It's not just telling them where to find the information, it's sitting down with them, educating parents how to sit down with them, and doing the research with them.
So what you're saying, for example, if my daughter, she had an interest in doing biology, for example, but the work, what works needs, they don't need this kind of certain work. So I need to push her into going into the IT sessions.
I wouldn't be pushing her anywhere. That's not what we're saying.
The reality is, this is what they need, 10 years from now or 5 years from now.
What you want to be doing is the research together with them. So you want to be sitting down with her and saying, all right, so you want to be an interior designer. What part of the world do you want to start your career in? That's very important to think about as well. Because jobs that exist in one country, like Australia, might not exist in another country. So getting them to identify where do they want to start the first 3 to 5 years of their career. And then from there, it's doing the research. So we're just coming to the last 5 minutes of the talk, and I want to be able to give you some time for feedback. But in doing that research, you'll be able to identify, in doing the research, how many jobs are being predicted, or is this job evolving so much with technology that it might not be a job that will be performed by people, it might be performed by artificial intelligence, and there might be other requirements for her. So you never want to push them, and you definitely never want to tell them no. What you want to tell them is, let's get curious. What would your lifestyle look like if this was the career choice that you went down? So there's another sheet on your table, on your chair. And I want you to take what you wrote on your Post-it and post the Post-it where it says now, if you can. And then ask yourself, what's the goal? What's the goal? Where do you want your students, what do you want them to achieve by the time they leave your school? And then all that happens in between are all the actions that you need to be taking to get them to that final goal. So if right now my school is not really doing so much because, with something new for our school, we might just bring in a few professionals and we might have a career day. But what we want them to be prepared for the world of work. We want them ready when they get to university, at desk. I want them walking into either a career resource manager in a HR recruitment organization if they go down the employment path, or I want them walking into the careers office of a university if they plan to. And I want them telling them, these are my top 3 career choices. This is the degree that I'm doing. I know that these jobs are available to me. I'm looking for internship. I'm looking for some graduate work. Can you help me? That's an empowered conversation. So I know that if that's my goal, I need to be doing lots of things to get them to that goal. And research, speakers, yes.
Just remember to do the survey.
Oh, yes, I will.
For you.
Thank you so much. So that's my quick, let's get going. So I'm going to race us through this process. It's not just conversations. It's really about getting them to understand what's the cost involved in preparing themselves for work. There's a financial cost, either going to university or not going to university. There's a time factor cost. We can't make up time. You don't want them regretting how they've spent their time. And then, of course, there's the emotional cost of both their parents and themselves, the emotional distress that young people seem to be going through in thinking about their future. You want the value what they're gaining, their value of what choices they're making to be a lot higher and a lot more empowered than the cost of what they're doing. And the ultimate goal is employment. For us to have young people not just being employed but thriving in their future careers means that there's a benefit for the world as a whole. So the work that you do as a careers coach is not just about working with one student. It's really about how are you going to make a difference to the future of the world of work. It's by investing in your young people. This is just a sample of what our spotlight speakers have been in 1 week at desk. So that is what you want to be thinking about, is the kinds of plethora of professionals that you bring in. And then there's mapping their way. This is mapping their way. These are all the things that you would want to be doing to get them to where they are. Now, I know this PowerPoint is going to be shared online as well, so don't worry too much about writing it all down. I'm very passionate about the work I do. And very often I meet people that want to be doing the work I do. And it's so very important that you identify not just with the work that we do in careers, but also in asking yourself, do you have what it takes to be with young people and helping them to be empowered and helping them to understand how to take their aspirations and make them a reality? Because the work that we do means that you're constantly working with young people who have doubts, who have critics, but who need your enthusiasm. So you need to be a very dynamic person, and you really want to be thinking about, how can I make these students thrive? It's not just about your school anymore. You're going to be having these students filter into the wider community. And that's why, by preparing them for the work they want to be doing, you need to be the individual that's ready to take all those skills, transferable skills that we talk about, networking, and you want to be identifying with it. I don't just want my desk students surviving in the world of work. I want them thriving, and that's underlying everything. So say yes to opportunities. You need to raise your level of confidence. It's not easy cold calling people and talking about your program. You need to be confident, and you need to take actions every single day. Every day I go into the office and I think, what did I not do yesterday that I really want to be doing? Or what did I do yesterday that wasn't really effective? What can I do different? I'm constantly speaking to students and parents and asking them, how was that for you? And in trusting the journey and trusting that you're not going to get it right away. 4 years ago, the program wasn't what it was today. It was a program that was only 11 hours a week for all of our students. Today, it's nothing what it was, and 2 years from today, it will be completely different, because my actions every day will define how the program is evolving. You need to stay dynamic. You cannot just assume that by doing what you're doing, it's going to be effective in the next 6 months. You need to stay dynamic. This is a testimonial from one of my older students.
So initially, my hopes for career coaching was just to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of career. That's it. I had 3 courses I liked, but no clue how to apply them to a job, to any industry whatsoever. So the initial benefits of career coaching was to figure out which industry I want to work in, what careers I want to do, and more specifically, which jobs I want to work in. It's also helped me sort out which alternate routes underneath the days are fine. Didn't you do an exam with a degree apprenticeship or in an internship? That really helped. The main reason why I recommend the system for desk is that it allows you to clear up your career path, allows you to actually decide what you want to do in the future if you ever don't know. It also allows you to explore the alternate ideas that you may have for what you want to do in the future. It allows you to talk to someone that isn't your parents. And that's the main reason.
So teach your students to fish for their food. Don't teach them that the food is going to come to them. And that's important. The world of work requires our young people to step up and take opportunities. So I'm now going to ask you to fill in your feedback. And I believe if you go to this website and click on the session feedback, you'll be able to do that. And I've made it to the end. If anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Hi.
I'm very interested with your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
I'll give you
Would love to
my,
meet you if I get a chance to.
yeah, I'll give you my card. I'm going to stay around for a few
really
hours.
excited to know about that week.
Yes, I forgot to mention, I'm going to be starting a careers community. I want to have careers coaches and careers guidance advisors from all schools working together. So if you take my email and send me a message saying that you're interested, I'll invite you to our January community meeting.
Sure.
Okay? And then you'll find out about Careers Day, Careers Week.